Big Riff Energy. If you have discovered this channel through my most recent top 10 video, welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might be getting hit with skippable ads, which means we have successfully monetized this channel. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry. This is the world we're in, man. You know, I'm torn between two worlds. I've got an animal inside me that just wants to deny the trappings of the modern world and society and technology and just retreat further into the woods and learn how to be self-sufficient and completely detached from all this sort of stuff. But then I have this other side in me that wants to create and be involved in music, and I know that I have to be. And in the year 2023, you got to do something. You got to do something. It's not enough anymore just to make good albums. It really isn't. So it's all good. You know, the animal side of me is like, if you're a 35-year-old man with aspirations of becoming a YouTuber, you should, I want to say something that'll probably get this video demonetized, but I'll just say you should, maybe reassess your priorities. So as with everything I do, there's been a lot of internal struggling with this whole thing. But I've had a lot of conversations with, you know, my most trusted confidants. And it's just the old school mentality coming up before the internet. I see this whole thing as silly. It's just like inherently silly and superficial, but I don't think that's right. I just think that's a prejudice that I have from growing up before any of this existed. Because I feel like if I was sitting here writing books or writing even blogs, you know, when the internet first came around, you find out about cool music through blogs and stuff like that. I feel like I would take it more seriously myself. But all that stuff is outdated. All that stuff's outdated, and this is what's current. You know, I got into heavy music through all sorts of different avenues, stuff that was on TV, looking at bands' promo photos and seeing what shirts they're wearing, going through liner notes and albums and seeing what bands they think, and that was then, and this is now. And you know, I'm very, as disgusted as I am and as dissatisfied as I am with the current state of music and stuff like that, this is a way to do something about it. And I'm seeing it work. I'm seeing it work. This whole YouTube channel started because music industry geniuses have always told me, like, you need to do more content, do more social media. I had a sneaking suspicion that what would happen with that is that no one gives a shit, and that was 100% accurate pertaining to everything else I was doing other than this. So I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I took some direction, even though I think the sources of that direction, were not, let me just say, not reliable. But no, like the last. And if you just listen to this podcast and you have nothing to do with the YouTube channel or whatever, I apologize, but I'm seeing it work. And YouTube is where I'm getting like the most immediate feedback. Like I just did this top 10 greatest metal band or greatest metal albums of all time. And the top comment is some kid that's 17 who's like, unless I'm being catfished, which is a strong possibility. It might just be like Agent Smith from The Matrix. But it's claiming to be a 17-year-old kid just now getting into metal and saying this video is like gold for me. And that's cool. That's cool. And I've seen quite a few comments like that. You know, I've opened myself up to a more communal type thing with, I guess you would say, fans and just, you know, fellow fans of real music and real metal. You can write me anything, questions, comments, concerns, whatever, at bigriffenergy@gmail.com. That has opened up all kinds of windows of positivity in my mind, so that's cool. You know, it's this whole process has definitely made me less jaded and less cynical. I'm still very jaded and very cynical, and I'll get to that later. I've been living in an echo chamber as far as that's concerned because I've been watching these Rick Beato YouTube interviews, which is just like Gen Xers basically lamenting the death of like real guitar music and real albums and stuff. I'll talk about that later. We are playing Metal Injection Fest in Anaheim on Sunday. Uh, we're not gonna have merch at our merch table. We're gonna have vinyl and CD of our new album, but we're not gonna have T-shirts. I'll go ahead and talk about that now. Why not? Why not? People are screaming, running in slow motion. Frank from Metal Injection, who is organizing this whole thing, is one of my favorite people I've met in this game. I love Frank. He's a really, really good dude. Good friend. Frank cannot control Live Nation or House of Blues at all. If he could, he would, believe me. But they're taking a 15% merch cut plus California tax. People are sleeping on the street in tents and piles of their own shit. I highly doubt that California tax is going to go towards fixing that. Believe me, I don't like paying tax in Texas either with what they're doing here. And I don't want to fly merch across the country, pay 15% when they're like very aggressively, explicitly saying that they will not be providing sellers. I don't know why they keep repeating that in every fucking email that I get. Okay, I got it. You know, it's just some Mickey Mouse shit, man. And it's real easy for dudes in big ass bands to talk about this while they're paying their bills. You know, as a matter of fact, I saw Dino from Fear Factory, all the respect and love in the world to Dino. But there was a fucking Metal Injection article where Dino from Fear Factory was talking about how fucked up merch cuts are. And he's 100% right. Meanwhile, Fear Factory is playing Metal Injection Festival and they're going to be paying a merch cut. Again, if Dino could do something about that, he would. But dudes in bands, especially bands at that level, we become so entrenched in this system that really mirrors like bureaucratic corporate type systems, or even like the bureaucracy and the slow grinding, agonizing inefficiency of like our political system. And it just takes forever for stuff to change. Like this merch cut shit is a relic of a music industry that doesn't exist anymore. It's a fucking musical chair, like circle jerk, you know? And yeah, it's easy for dudes in big bands to talk shit about it. And then their bands are just paying every merch cut and they go about their business and they're making plenty of money. People need to start actually doing something about it. So we're not bringing merch. If you want to get merch, go to nightshiftmerch.com. If you're outside of North America, go to evilgreed.net. And we have some like tour leftovers and stuff on our Big Cartel, spiritadrift.bigcartel.com. But I'm not paying merch cuts anymore. I'm not. We're in the process of getting a new agent, and I'm going to see how it goes. I'm sure there's... Oh my God. I love having this platform. I just got to say. And I just like spraying shit on people with this, and I love it. Sorry, everybody. We're getting a new agent. We got a few dudes in mind, but I'm just gonna. It's a hard absolute rule for me from now on, non-negotiable, that we are not going to pay merch cuts. Period. So if you never see us on tour again, that might not be the entire reason, but this probably related. Because what happens is there's always going to be another band that'll take less money on their guarantee and who will pay a merch cut, because the music industry thrives on taking advantage of artistic type people's sensitivities and fear of missing out. That's a big one. So, and you know, I'm reasonable about this. If we start talking with agents, it's like, you know, if we need to negotiate the guarantee, bring the guarantee down just a little bit to avoid the merch cut, that's cool. Because it's just the older I get, the more allergic I am to bullshit. And it's just I don't know what words I could pick to fully illustrate how absurd the whole process is. But they're basically like fake bumping up your guarantee and then just taking the money back from you at the end of a show, which is supposed to be like a fun, cool experience with good feelings. So it's just like the ultimate fucking buzzkill to play a show and it's good and you get your guarantee, which for most bands doesn't even cover the expenses of being on tour. I would say for every band these days, it doesn't, your guarantee is not even covering your expenses. And then some dude comes up and it's awkward for him too. God bless these poor guys who are having to do this shit. Nobody likes doing it. And then you have to, you just played music. You just had a really good time. Everybody at the show, most of our shows are like really fun. There's hardly ever like bad vibes or anything like that. But you're just guaranteed if you have to pay a merch cut, you're going to have a section of every single fucking day of tour, which is already hard enough, where you have to have this complete buzzkill. So people need to start doing something about it. And I'm not trying to be like some white knight. I'm literally just an asshole. That's it. I'm just not an asshole as far as this is concerned, but it's just I'm stubborn. And, I'm going to talk about this Quincy Jones book a little bit more later. But he talked about like when you're going for it in this industry or really any industry, you have to establish like who you are, what your guideposts are. And you have to have at least a few things, I guess you'd call them like values or something like that, that you will not waver on. Because otherwise, especially in the entertainment industry, if you give these motherfuckers an inch, a few years are going to go by and you're not even going to know who you are. You're not even going to know who you are. You're going to sacrifice an inch at a time until you've given your entire personality and your entire soul into this void, into this fucking machine that grinds people up. That's why dudes kill themselves and shit. That's why people don't make it through this. I don't know. That's like melodramatic or whatever, but it's real. It's real. I'm going to talk a little later about one of the Rick Beato stuff. They were interviewing Chris from Nirvana, Kim Thale from Soundgarden, and Jack Endino, and it was really powerful just seeing these guys who had lost their best friends and their lead singers. There was a guy, a really good friend of mine recently was talking about alcoholism and drug addiction. And he said, we're all really sensitive and this stuff strangles us with our own sensitivity. It takes our own sensitivity, strangles us to death with it. And you could say the same thing about the music industry. So yeah, I've been putting this episode off because I usually like there to be like some sort of theme tying everything together. And I think there is. I'm going to try to navigate through this. I went and saw Danzig in San Antonio. First of all, I love San Antonio, man. I love San Antonio. Midnight open for him. Got to see those dudes. Man, what good guys those dudes are. Their whole crew, everybody. Wiki, their sound guy. Rodney, who sells merch, handles all their merch and stuff. Rodney was in Devastation. Give me a break, dude. Texas Metal Legends. Check out Devastation Idolatry if you haven't heard that album. But yeah, I love those dudes. Love Midnight. And every time they play San Antonio, Jamie's got I think it's a Ted Nugent reference where he just keeps screaming San Antonio. It's really funny. So yeah, oh my God, spilled all over myself. So I got to hang with those dudes. They played like the fastest, most relentless midnight set possible. There was like no coming up for air at all. Between every song, he just screamed, "Come on, you fucks." And that's it. That was the only banter. "Come on, you fucks," between every song. And he referred to it as a Ramones set later. But man, crushed. Jay Bennett, my boy from LA, was there. Very shocked to see him and his girl. That was cool. Got to hang out with them. I drove down there with Champ Morgan, who is the first guest ever on this podcast. We just listened to Wake the whole time, told stories. If I can make it work. So Champ Champ went to my hometown of Bartlesville, Oklahoma to do some stuff last week. And I was just jokingly like, tell everybody in Bartlesville that Nasty Nate said, fuck you. And he did. Here, check this out.
Hey, Bartlesville! Nasty Nate says, fuck off!
So he's downtown in Bartlesville. That's the Price Tower behind him, which was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And there had to have been a lot of people out. I don't know. So I love you, man. Thanks for that. Yeah, Danzig was great, man. I've seen him 4 or 5 times. And this was the best. This was the best. He's 68 years old. Hard to believe. 68 years old, going strong. Crushing it. Crushing it. I got into the Misfits through Metallica when I was real young. And right about the time I was getting into them, that Coffin box set came out with basically like every Danzig era song. And I think that's when their popularity was kind of peaking. They were doing the old breakup, and 10, 15 years later, you're going to get big thing. You know, it's weird when we look back on stuff retroactively. We all just kind of assume the Misfits were always this like huge band. But I'm not sure they were at the time. I wasn't there, obviously, but they were only around for a little bit. And Glenn got kind of sick of it. He got burnt out on it. He had higher aspirations. We'll get into higher aspirations a little bit later with the Quincy Jones thing. But he was just frustrated. He just didn't really feel like his guys were on his level. So he did a solo. Well, he did Sam Hain, obviously, Samhain, and then the solo stuff. And it's funny because the solo Danzig stuff was like huge, you know, produced by Rick Rubin, big label release. Those first 3 Danzig records are 3 of my favorite records ever. I didn't discover them till way later, and I'm not sure why. But I was playing Misfits songs in my first 2 bands growing up. Really obsessed with that band. But yeah, I don't think the dude really like took off until the solo Danzig stuff, which was huge. And it's funny now, like he did the Misfits reunion thing, and they're playing like giant outdoor amphitheaters and like headlining over Megadeth and bands like that. And now the solo Danzig stuff, you know, he played in San Antonio to, I don't know, not even like a fifth of the amount of people. So it's just weird how things flip and change over the years, and our retroactive, you know, our hindsight understanding of the whole situation is like not really accurate, I don't think. You know, it's the whole concept of like even Metallica was gutting it out at one point. They were like, there was a point where they were not legends, you know, they were just like punk ass kids, you know, getting their amps stolen and going through the same stuff the rest of us do. But seeing these aging guys always gets me thinking, man. And yeah, it's tough business. It's never been tougher. And I think that's been weighing heavy on me the last few years. I think it's tricky regardless to transition from being a young, cool dude into like middle age. That's always been hard for everybody. And I think it's hard to go through a global pandemic where the whole world is shut down for 2 years, especially when the thing that you're doing with your life is the last thing to come back and will probably be the last thing to recover if it ever recovers. And it all happened at the same time for me and so many of my friends too. So it's like, it's tough, man. There's this line, jumping all over the place here. There's this line in this Quincy Jones book towards the end that like hit me between the eyes, man. Despite all the special awards and testimonials that maturity bestows, I've found that the values I carry within myself and the impact I have on my family and beyond carry the greatest weight. There's nothing wrong with striving for more. I highly encourage it, but I'd also tell you to ask yourself why you are doing it. You may be surprised at your answer, but even more commonly, you may be surprised to not even have one. Careers are volatile and status comes and goes, but when it's all said and done, what legacy will you be proud to leave behind? Yeah, man, might not even have an answer when you ask yourself why you are striving for more. And that's where I've been for 3 years, man. And I posted that on my Instagram stories, probably the last Instagram post I'll ever do. Who gives a shit, right? But I gave the social media thing one last college try for this new album. And now I can tell anybody in the future that it doesn't fucking work. And if you want Nate Garrett to have a goddamn public social media persona, you better call somebody, because I ain't doing it. Except right here. Right here is the only fucking way I'm doing it. Anyway, I posted that quote and I got like 15 messages immediately from people in the music industry, people in bands, tour managers, booking agents, everybody just being like, damn, that's exactly how I feel. And it's not just limited to our way of life. I mean, it's everything. It's everything. I had a neighbor come over here yesterday who he's quote unquote retired, but has a cattle ranch. I guess that's his version of retiring. And as different as you might think the life of like a cattle rancher is from the life of a metal musician, me and this guy are going through the same shit, essentially. You know, it's fear of the unknown, uncertainty about how to survive, at least financially, you know. And there's like an epidemic of a lack of purpose right now, for sure. But then I look at a guy like Danzig and I think of this line in No Country for Old Men where Tommy Lee Jones, I think it's his uncle or his brother, says, "What you got ain't nothing new." Right? I like all my heroes have been through some version of this. Danzig memed himself at some point, you know. If you're here waiting for me to criticize Danzig, it ain't gonna happen. The man, he's 68 years old, and it's just like, okay, first 3 Danzig records are like perfect to me, right? I prefer the second one, and I know it kind of has some kitschy, like borderline novelty songs on it. I'm the One, Killer Wolf's cool. But dude, the heavy hitter songs on that record are some of the best songs ever written. Tired of Being Alive. Danzig played 10 songs from the first album. No spoilers here. We all know he's playing the whole first album. He didn't play a single song past Danzig 3. And he played a bunch from Danzig 2 and a bunch from Danzig. I mean, if I could handpick a Danzig set list, it would be every single song I would want to hear. Devil's Plaything would have been cool. He didn't play that, but man, it hit me like all the shit this guy's been through. He might have thought his career was over when he broke up the Misfits or quit the Misfits or whatever. He might have thought his career was over when Sam Hain didn't turn out the way he wanted it to. I'm pretty sure the dude was like 35 years old when Danzig 2 came out. My math could be slightly off there, but yeah, gives me hope, man. Gives me hope. And he's up there. He's a legend now forever. He wasn't at one time. And he's seen all sort of changes and stuff like that. I've been thinking of like a metaphor for what all of us rockers are going through right now. Touring like old school, like to be a rocker, you put thousands of hours into your craft. You make records in a studio, not with your friend Joe Blow Jackoff with his fucking Cubase set up or whatever. You go to a studio and you spend a lot of money. You spend a lot of the record label's money to make a real record. And then you go on tour and you eat shit for however long it takes until you're not eating shit. That's, you know, that's the life to me. But I'm starting to realize it's like, all right, let's say it's the 80s or 90s. You're graduating high school or whatever. All you want to do is write for a newspaper. And your ultimate goal one day is to be like the editor of a print newspaper. There's no internet. Cable TV news is only on for like an hour a day. You know, there's no 24-hour news cycle. There's no blogs. There's no newsletters. None of that shit. You want to, your ultimate purpose in life is like damn Citizen Kane or something. You want to be a newspaper man. So you dump like 10, 15 years of your life into education, experience, grinding. You know, you're like working your way up as a journalist. It's everything you wanted to do. You're doing everything right. You make a few mistakes along the way, but like the general trajectory, you're crushing it. You become editor of a newspaper, and now it's now it's like 2016, and you're like, oh shit, there's no such thing as a damn newspaper anymore. What am I gonna do? You know, and you hate the whole concept of the 24-hour news cycle. You hate the whole concept of clickbait and fucking online articles and all that crap. What do you do? What do you do? So I feel like that's the conundrum that us, you know, I'm not like right. Everybody's got their own specific like challenges, no matter what your age is or whatever like that. But I'm right in the middle of the generation that grew up really before social media or the internet. And it's just like all these massive changes are happening at a time in life that's already kind of challenging to adapt to. And man, Quincy Jones just nailed it. And you just got to listen to him. You got to listen to him. Like, figure out who you are and, you know, establish some values, as corny as that is, and just stick to it no matter what. No matter what. And that's the only way that you'll be able to live with yourself on a long enough scale. You know, like I said earlier, the music industry preys on the fear of missing out. It's like, oh, if that band gets to tour with that band and I'm sitting home, I'm going to feel really, really bad. You know, you got to fuck that. Nobody cares. At the end of the day, nobody cares. I think records are really important. And I think no matter what weird flux is happening right now with music and stuff, I think that's always going to be true. I think that I'm not worried about AI making music. I'm not worried about charlatans getting like 15 minutes of fame. Yeah, I've been watching these Rick Beato YouTube interviews, which are great, man, but it isn't really helping with the whole dude going slowly into middle age, like grappling with how the fuck to navigate the music business thing, because that's basically all the channel is. It's a bunch of Gen X dudes just being like, what's happening, you know? And they're all pretty open-minded about it, to their credit, but there's a sense of like loss. There's a sense of tragedy on his channel of just like the glory days of guitar music and giant major label budgets, and the music industry just like raking in cash hand over fist. That shit's gone. It's gone. You know, our record landed on some Billboard charts, and I'm gonna break the fourth wall here. Well, thank you to everyone that supported the record, but who gives a fuck about the Billboard charts? Okay, 1,500 streams is equal to one album sale. So do the math on that. If you get 1 million streams, divide that by 1,500 and see, it's not very impressive. So all this shit's over. It's over, and we're like pretending that it's not over, but it is. It's over. We got to figure it out. And I'm not diminishing the fans' support of the record. You guys are literally the only fucking reason that we do it. That's the only for us and for you. That's it. But yeah, Rick Beato, I watched him talk to Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, and I was like, oh no, here comes my Smashing Pumpkins obsession phase. Melancholy came out, that big record they put out came out when I was like 8, I think. And I have distinct memories of watching MTV and seeing like Bullet with Butterfly Wings, that video, and Tonight. And I just, when I got into music, I wasn't really ever attached to the era that I was experiencing. I was more listening to like stuff from the 70s, you know, or whatever, just anything that sounded good. And I almost think that I just kind of overlooked the Smashing Pumpkins because of how massive it was and how like ingrained in the culture it was for years. I mean, they were just huge. They were everywhere. You couldn't exist for 15 seconds without hearing that song. So I don't think I ever really explored the depth of their music. And you know, I've always respected Billy Corgan. I've always thought their songs are like really catchy and stuff. They're sort of making like a comeback now. He's more in the news and doing interviews and stuff, and they're touring. And uh, yeah, I go through these phases where I can only listen to one thing, and I try to listen to other stuff, and it's just not doing it for me. The one before this was probably 3 6 Mafia. The one before that was George Jones, and that lasted like a year. The one before that was Ozzy Osbourne's solo stuff, and that lasted like a year. Before that, it was Tangerine Dream, and it's crazy. I get like obsessed. Doesn't even come close to describing it, but I'm listening to Siamese Dream, and I just can't believe how good it is. And this ties back to what I just said a minute ago about not being afraid of AI taking over music, rock music or whatever. Not being afraid of charlatans and people who can't play or write songs getting 15 minutes of fame. Because I listen to Siamese Dream, which is, you know, plenty of people are still listening to it today. It holds up as it's like widely considered one of the best records ever made by pretty much everybody, which is funny because Rolling Stone gave it a 3.5 out of 5 when it came out. But I started reading about it and trying to wrap my head around some of the sounds that are happening. When I watched another interview with Butch Vig, who, you know, recorded the first 2 Smashing Pumpkins records and Nevermind. And, you know, Billy Corgan's reaction to Nevermind was, okay, you stole my fucking guitar sound. And he's just one of these guys that has a demon in him, you know? And it's a blessing and a curse. But I started reading about Siamese Dream and the band's just like falling apart while they're making it. And Billy and Butch would be locked in the control room sometimes for 2 days working on like a 30-second section of music. And some of the songs have like 100 layers of guitars, you know, bounce down, bust down to different tracks so that it's possible to keep overdubbing and stuff like that. AI can't do that. Like there's something, and charlatans can't do that. They're too weak, and they're not willing to. Billy Corgan had a nervous breakdown while they were recording Siamese Dream, and I love that shit. I love it. AI is not capable of having a nervous breakdown, and there's something in the human DNA. If you want to call it soul, you can call it a soul. There's something unidentifiable, or there's something unidentified up to this point in humans. Some people call it a soul. You can call it DNA, whatever. But there's something that instinctively recognizes that amount of effort being put into something. You can listen to Siamese Dream, and there's moments on that record where it's like somebody took every second of their life experience and hopes and dreams and pain and suffering and channeled it into this 10-second part of this song and worked on it so hard and so intensely that they had a fucking nervous breakdown and it ruined their life. They had to start going to therapy. I love that, man. I love that. That's art and that's music. And yeah, that's going to be forever. No matter what weird shit's happening right now, everybody's lost and confused, and it's reflected in our culture, in our art, in our music, in our society. Nothing makes any damn sense. Everything that's cool is like looked at as not cool. Everything that's decent is looked at as not decent. Fuck that. There's always going to be a human being that has a demon inside of them that they need to get out. That's going to lock themselves in a control room for 2 days, trying to get the guitar tone on one little lead exactly right. So that 30 years later, somebody like me can finally get their complete mind blown out of their skull by that record still. And I bet 30 years from now, some kid is going to hear Siamese Dream and be like, what is this? What is this? Yeah, another Rick Beato thing I was watching, I mentioned earlier. Kim Thale, Jack Endino, and Chris Novoselic from Nirvana. And man, some people just don't make it. That just struck me while I was watching that. And you know, there was a moment where they were listening to Smells Like Teen Spirit, and Chris was talking about it and sort of attempting to, like, how do you talk about what happened to Nirvana without taking like 4 days to talk about it? You know, they were like shot out of a cannon. Chris said that he experienced about 20 or 30 years worth of life in a couple of years. It was like compressed into a couple of years. And that's why he disappeared, because he had to decompress from 20 years worth of life experiences that he experienced and fast forward in 2 years, you know? And he talked about Kurt just kind of being like a windmill. Like, he would say one thing one day and feel super strongly about it, and the next day feels super strongly the opposite way. I was like, man, I know how you feel. I know how you feel. And then, you know, they played Black Hole Sun, and Kim Thale was going to start talking about that. But there was a moment where Black Hole Sun started playing, and Chris Novoselic looks, I'm fucking up his name, Novoselic, I think. He looks over at Kim Thale. I can't describe the expression, but it's just like empathy, I guess. And he just kind of slaps him on the shoulder, you know, and they just look at each other, and it was a look of melancholy and just, man, intense. Two guys that unfortunately have a very specific understanding of each other's experiences. And it's just got me thinking, man, I was talking to my wife last night of like, I've watched a lot of people die in this shit. And there's just been a lot of people dying, like, in general. But, you know, it goes back to that being strangled by your sensitivity thing. A lot of my friends who I've watched not make it in the music biz or whatever you want to call it. And I try to take a step back, and I was like, if somebody didn't really know me, but just looking at me on paper, I've got every single, and we're not trying to make this about me, but it just freaked me out. I have like every single attribute that would point towards somebody not making it, with either suicide or like drinking yourself to death or overdose or whatever. And that's fucking scary. That's scary. I'm not worried about it really, but it just objectively, I took a step back and looked at it, and that'll make you think, man. Make you think. I think the guys that make it, the guys like Danzig, the guys like Billy Corgan, who a lot of people are like, oh, he's a tyrant. Oh, he was insufferable. He was fucking crazy. And you got to have a little bit of a demon in you, man. That's what it feels like. And it can destroy you, but it can protect you too. Because I'm like, I have to stay alive, figuratively speaking, because there's too many people's graves that I got to dance on, you know? And again, that's figurative. It sounds like Michael Jordan before games, just making up some sort of conflict that he had with the opposing team, just to bring that demon out of him, you know? So Danzig says, am I demon? Yeah, dude, he is. 68 years old, still out there like embarrassing bands half his age. Oh, and Tommy Victor's the only guy that can go from real amps to Kempers, and his tone suddenly becomes more warm and tube-like and pleasant. His guitar sounded great, man, and he was laying off the pinch harmonics and stuff. He was doing a lot more like how JC does it on the records, you know. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about at this point. I do, believe it or not, Siamese Dream isn't even the album of discussion today. It is, but it isn't. I wanted to talk about the Suffering Hour record. Was it the Cyclic Reckoning? Marcus, the former drummer of Spirit Adrift, introduced me to this band. And we played in Denmark on the Yob tour, and they were playing down the street. We got done playing, and Sonny and I ran over there to catch them, and it was just incredible, man. Incredible. Really unique. I would say, I guess it's black metal-ish. There's like death metal elements, but there's the guitar tone is just so unique. It has more in common with like Killing Joke or The Cure. Just a lot of chorus, a lot of reverb, and really diverse vocals, like low sort of death metal vocals and the sort of like the mid-range. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really heavy. It's really weird. It doesn't sound like Wake, but it reminds me of that sort of slithering, circular, progressive, unpredictable, but still catchy kind of guitar work. The drumming is absolute, just like beast mode. I want to shout out Jason, the drummer of this band. I know he listens to this podcast. What up, dude? And been going through some real life shit, and I'm glad to hear about the good news, brother. Very, very psyched. Very psyched. Keep it up. I love this record. I love Suffering Hour. Get through your shit, brother, and make another record, because I want some more Suffering Hour riffs. I love it. I would say this is for fans of, dude, I don't even know. Death Spell Omega, Killing Joke, progressive death metal, I guess. It just listen to it. It's cool. It's hard to describe. Very evil and very catchy, and yeah, it just rules. It rules. What a great band. Yeah. They put many, many hours into it, and they went real studio and made a real record. And I'm going to be listening to it for a long time. And that's going to keep happening forever. I'm not worried about it. All right. See you guys this weekend. Thank you.